What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Too Much Test podcast. I'm here with David Demesquita, and we're going to talk about all things testosterone. So what's going on, David? How's it going?
Good, man. Catching up from sleep deprivation from the Olympia. How's everything going on your end, bro?
It's going good. I went to the Olympia. I had a blast there. I got to meet Tony Huge, Seth Jordan. I got to meet Ryan Russo and Craig Goliath. And I saw Jujimufu running away from me. Not specifically running away from me, but I walked like right into the Olympia, and I look to my left and I see this guy with, curly hair and freaking jacked jogging. And I got the video and I put together a little montage of the Olympia on my YouTube. But it was pretty cool to see all those people.
Did you actually see Jujimufu on stage? No, you didn't. It was on like a Wednesday. So I actually looked at Greg Duchette's video. I was just curious to see what he looked like on stage. I can't listen to Greg Duchette for too long just because his voice. I like Greg Duchette, don't get me wrong. Everything that he says is pretty spot on and accurate. Just I can only tolerate his voice for so long. But I watched the Jujimufu episode just to see what he looked like. He looked pretty good. If his legs come up, I think he'll go pro. I mean, he's 245 pounds. His upper body, he's really upper body dominant. But he came in pretty conditioned as well.
Yeah, what did he come in? He came in fifth, I think.
I don't know. I know he was the first call out. There was one guy that was standing right next to him, and you knew the guy was going to probably win the class. And I think the guy ended up winning the overall show, the guy that was standing next to him. I talked to Kenny Wallish, and he said that his guy that he posed for bodybuilding was a super heavy, and he ended up winning the overall show and going pro.
Oh, wow. But yeah, I mean, like Greg was saying, I mean, fifth place at the Mr. Olympia for your first bodybuilding show. I mean, he's really talented in his own right. I mean, powerlifting, gymnastics, arm wrestling. Now he's got bodybuilding. I mean, he's a freaking athlete.
Yeah. And that's what he went into, that every single thing he's ever done, he's been very, very successful at, extremely successful at, just freaky. If he does martial arts, he's good at martial arts. If he does gymnastics, he's good at gymnastics. And then everyone's like, but people have to realize that bodybuilding is something that you do for years. I mean, he's jacked, but it's bodybuilding. I mean, you have to bring up your weak points for years sometimes. So that's kind of what he got into actually before he even analyzed him. But he didn't dock him. He's like, yeah, if he brings up his legs, he can probably go pro. And that's exactly what I saw when I saw him. I mean, he looks pretty good.
Nice. So I wanted to ask you, what if you could only take one form of testosterone, or basically one ester, what would that be for the rest of your life for TRT and other stuff?
Yeah. So, what's funny is best bang for buck, I like Test D. The Test C is kind of what I stick to. Even my script, they can give me Test C because I just prefer Test E. But a little bit better absorption ratios than Test C. And essentially almost identical in half-life too. Very, very close to each other.
Well, they think it's like 4 or 5, and then it cypionates 7, 8, right?
I think it's like splitting hairs. I think it's maybe a day difference between the two or something like that. It's really not that much. And the thing is, with injection frequency, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, you can just shoot both twice a week and keep it just as stable. In theory, if you're going for peak half-life, then you'd want to do it 3 times a week. But the same with Test C. So it's like splitting those hairs in a fine line. But really twice a week on Test E or C is perfectly fine. You don't really tend to have estrogen issues. So I like Test E. But then the other testosterone that no one talks about that I think if the absorption ratio is a little bit better, the conversion, Testosterone Undecanoate is what I would go with. I mean, it's so stable.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I don't hear a lot of guys liking that for TRT wise, because it's suspended in castor oil, and what I think it's either 750 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams, once every 10 or 12 weeks. That's the TRT protocol for undecanoate.
Oh, well, I mean, that's dumb because that's what they do with every drug. They if it's Test C once a week, it's in theory, I guess, but in practice, you should do it twice a week still. Testosterone Undecanoate, you should do a shot every 2 weeks, period. Minimum every 2 weeks. And to be honest, if we look at it, the how long the half-life is, and we do it, test a shot every week instead of having to do it bi-weekly. That's the reason why I think Testosterone Undecanoate is pretty cool. And I don't think it has to be suspended in castor oil. I think it's just that's what the FDA, like in the legal realm, that's what they use. Because I mean, if you want to talk about the best oil is MIG. MIG's the best oil to suspend it. It's just so expensive, and the FDA doesn't use it. And I don't even know if the FDA uses MCT oil. Do you know if they use MCT oil or not? I don't think
I haven't seen it. I've never seen it in MCT oil by itself. I mean, I know a lot of the home brewers use the MCT oil. Remember what's the guy's name? I can't remember his name, but he's a big looking like Samoan Hawaiian looking guy. His name's like Ty or something. Anyway, it's like Formula SEC is. Anyway, he has videos on home brewing, not where he actually gives you formulas, but he's talking about it. And he's like, dude, he's like, I can pin 1-2 cc's pretty much in any muscle, and I don't get any PIP from the MCT oil. He's like, it's just the best oil. And he's talking about how he makes them like 100 ml recipes, and it basically comes down to like $3 per 10 ml. So a regular bottle of Test, like $3 is what he's making for at home.
Yeah. So and I used to know someone that home brewed like years and years ago. Like he shut it down like forever ago. I can't even remember. I think I saw Natural when I knew the guy. He was the first one that actually told me about Tren. He's like, everyone that you're looking up to is on Tren, by the way. That's how you like broke to me about like the news about steroids. And I was probably like 21 years old, maybe almost 22, like when I found out about like how everyone's pretty much running steroids. It was weird. But this guy was telling me that to make 100 so 10 bottles of Test, so what would that be, like 10,000 milligrams or something like that?
Oh shit. Mm-hmm.
10?
Well, if it's 10 times like 250. 10 times 10 to 2,500.
So 2,500 times 10. So you're looking at like 25,000. No, 250,000 milligrams, something like that.
25,000.
Thanks, man. I'm so
too
tired.
Much math.
Yeah, what is math? Ball of life. So $1 for the powder. He said that the filter, which was $20 or $25, is the most expensive piece of it. And then he's like, and then if you're actually using, I'm pretty sure he said he used to use like big, like 100 milliliter bottles, and that's how he only used to sell it to cut down the cost on the actual little 10 milligram bottles or 10 milliliter bottles. Yeah. Because it became so much more expensive, because he's like, Test costs literally nothing. And then, but the manufacturing cost is the only cost that goes into testosterone, which is like mind blowing. And I don't know anything else other than that. I just remember like that was from like way back in the day when he was like, yeah, man, everyone's on Tren that, I was like, what?
What's interesting that I find interesting. I mean, so think about it. So if it's costing, that guy Ty, it's costing him $3 to homebrew 10 ml, right? A normal bottle. So imagine how much the pharmaceutical company gets that stuff for and makes it. Let's just say that's the same $3 cost, and then you go to the pharmacy, and even with like GoodRx, you're paying like $50 a bottle. So think about the margin on that. And it's an extremely easy medicine to make. People, if you're not into like this whole scene and you just stumbled across this, testosterone's really easy to make. It's basically, and I'm not going to give like a recipe because that's, yeah. But basically, I mean, you weigh out as much testosterone as you want in that bottle. So, let's say you wanted 250 milligrams per milliliter. So 10 milliliter bottle, you're going to do 2,500 or 2.5 grams of raw powder. Then you're going to mix in 10 ml or close to 10 ml of oil, the carrier oil, and you mix in the alcohol and the benzoate. Benzoate. It's a preservative and an anti. Yep. And you basically mix all that stuff together, heat it up to a certain temperature, stir it up, and then you take it and you run it through a syringe filter into the bottle and seal off the top. And that's it.
That's actually kind of crazy, because I've never even I thought the process was exactly what you just said, and I literally had never cared to even look it up. I'm like, nope, don't want to know it.
Yeah, I don't trust myself to do that. I mean, I know the micron filter, but with my luck, I'd have the cap off. I'd be doing the micron filter, and then some little bug or a little germ would float right in, and but it's just interesting. I saw some documentary where these guys put all that stuff in a bowl, threw it in the microwave to heat it up, and then just were stirring it, and then they just run it through that syringe filter and into bottles.
So the benzyl alcohol piece that you listed off, usually if someone is getting underground stuff and the PIP, the post-injection pain or post-pain injection is so bad and just knots and stays knotted up and is irritating the muscle in the area, one, that's not the steroid. The steroid absorbs relatively quickly. What you're going to be left with is the oil usually, but I believe that muscle irritation is coming from that benzyl alcohol. They put too much benzyl alcohol in it to keep it sterile, and that's what causes that pain and inflammation.
Yeah, no, that's what I hear a lot. I hear a lot of also with the high dose stuff, like 400 milligrams per milliliter. I was talking to a guy on Instagram. He was trying to find like sterile oil so that he could cut that in half because the PIP was like so horrible. I think he did a quad shot and said he couldn't walk for a few days because it was that bad.
So the only oil that I know that can be probably suspended in with 400 milligram per milliliter test is that MIG. It's not MCT. That will probably crash at that dose. That's why, like, when people are saying that, like, once you get above 300 milligrams is doable, but it's like borderline of like undoable. And then once you see the 400 and 500 milligrams, it's like if you actually had that, you would not be able to walk after it was done. It's going to continue to crash. You have to literally cook it every single time. And so when they were getting these I don't know why, it was like a weird point in time. And I think this happened probably when I started getting into bodybuilding. People were like, oh yeah, like the highest that I ever heard of was like 200, 250 at the time. And then eventually there was like 300. 300 became a kind of normal thing underground. Next thing you know, like all these people were like, I have like 500 milligram per milliliter test. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, and then next, 400 milligram per, and then like one of them had like 600 milligram. I'm like, do you understand how like the chemistry that goes into it is like, there is a density level of the molecule that it has to be suspended in, and that's it. That's with literally any chemistry. It's kind of like having salt and water.
Saturation point.
Yeah.
Like you could put sugar, a certain amount of sugar into water and it's become super saturated. After that, the sugar will not absorb anymore into the water because it's full.
Yep. And like the same thing, like if you were to take like water and then you put salt in it or something like that, and then you went to like freeze it, I'm sure that you'd see, because now it's colder, then it would decouple a little. I'm pretty sure it would decouple. I'm not 100% sure, or it just wouldn't freeze, one of the two.
Yeah.
But there is a saturation point, like, the salt thing, the sugar thing. Like there's that saturation point where it just crashes.
Yeah.
And when you heat it, because the molecules expand, it absorbs. It looks like it absorbs in. I mean, in theory it does, but in like relative, like it's just that the molecules expand out. So it has more room for it.
And if you're not in this world, what David's saying when he means it crashes is the bottle, you'll actually see the testosterone will disconnect. I guess not the best word, but it will unpair itself with the oil and it turns into crystals, and you'll see the crystals. So that's what he's talking about being crashed. What's interesting is I actually got back when they try to give me these little freaking 1 ml bottles of test that I freaking hate. And I got like 4 of them, and one of them was crashed. This pharmaceutical from Walmart. And I basically took it and I put it in a heating pad and just let it chill for like 20 minutes and then shook it up, and it was fine.
Yeah. Someone was telling me that a really good method. So if I had something that crashed, it would be the microwave, right? But the issue with the microwave is it heats the rubber a lot.
So also the metal top too.
And the metal top. I mean, I never had an issue with the metal top. I guess I never thought about it that way. But yeah, I mean, the glass got really hot. And then, the metal top, maybe I did have an issue with it one time. So then like someone was like, you boil water and you put it in the water. But then someone told me, which is the smartest thing I've ever heard, was a candle lighter. It's like the candle heaters, and you sit it on top of the candle heater. It's just a puck that it sits on, and this way you have less breakdown and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I couldn't tell you, dude. I think I did that maybe like 2 times my entire life, and like if I've had something that crashed, sometimes I'll just like throw it out. I'd be like, it's probably gonna have some post-pain injection involved. I was like, I'm not good. I mean, I'm good. I did a video on this on my YouTube channel, dude. I have this bottle of Sustanon, and it's definitely pharma grade, but it's 250 per ml standard Sustanon. This stuff gives me PIP every time I inject it. I'm talking shoulders, where I never get PIP really. And I did a sub-Q injection. I did 3 of them. Each one of them got red.
and were a little tender. But the last one, it was still there, that bump, and not necessarily the redness, but the bump was there for 10 days. And I think it was day 3 or 4. I'm looking at my stomach and it's freaking red. It's red right around the site. And I'm like, yo, is this infected? I mean, I know that I'm super sterile with my stuff. I mean, I do the alcohol prep pad. Like when I do my shoulders, I go like all the way, I do everything. I let it dry. I don't touch it. So I'm super sterile. So I'm like, how would I get an infection from this? And I have antibiotics on hand. I always have one of my doctors write me an extra script of antibiotics just so I have it on hand. May not be the best for that particular infection, but it saves me a day or two of having to go to the doctor and get a thing. And also I can decide if I want to take an antibiotic. So I gave it another day and the redness did start to go away. I double checked. I didn't have a fever or anything like that. So it wasn't an infection, but it definitely looked and felt like an infection. But I'm glad it wasn't. But that's from normal 250 Sustanon. And so I don't know what the hell to do with that bottle. I hate throwing away testosterone. I hate it. It hurts my soul.
Yeah. So people, they always talk about how bad and painful Tren Ace is, right? Tren acetate.
Yeah.
To be honest, I've never had issues with it. But what I can tell you, testpropionate is a whole nother beast. That testpropionate hurts. And I don't know, people never talk about it. Testprop is the only thing. And then you were talking about being super sterile and having antibiotics on hand and everything like that. I want to actually ask you, have you ever had test flu before?
I have not. I've never had test flu. The only sickness side effect I've ever gotten from any type of gear was LGD gave me a little bit of nausea when I started taking it. And I discontinued it because it gives me nausea. And I was like, I can't feel like this all day to get a little bit of gains.
So I had test flu one time. It's a real thing. It sounds like an urban legend. You can literally Google test flu and it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It feels just like the flu and it hits harder and faster than the flu does. And it's cold symptoms, but it's gone within 48 hours. It's not like the flu where you have it for 7 to 10 days or so.
Yeah.
But they put me down. I still ended up going to the gym because I knew I was okay and I wasn't sick. Maybe a day or 2 days later, but I don't know if it's the day after I got it. If I went to the gym, I felt so bad. It is. And I've had friends text me out of the blue, hey man, because they'll be whenever they have issues, they're like, hey man, what's up? I'm just like, okay, what's up, man? But I've had friends that have legit gotten the test flu and they're like, I don't know if I need to go in the clinic. I'm like, look, dude, if you're worried about your health, go to a clinic. I'm not going to say don't go to the doctors. A lot of people have irritation from injections, especially with underground stuff. But you can even have it with pharmaceutical grade where it leaks. And this is what I try to explain to people. It can leak out of the muscle and go in between the skin and create a rash. So if you get a rash, that's not an unknown thing. It does happen, but it's because it leaked out of the muscle and it went in between the skin and the muscle and it created an irritation issue like an infection. That's why you get the hot area.
So, interesting. Well, I know that a lot of the post-injection pain comes from, also, I mean, it can irritate the muscle, but I know that, that layer in between your muscle and your fat, there's a subcutaneous lining. And when it comes back through from the pin and the muscle, that little bit that gets in between the muscle and that subcutaneous fat, it irritates the shit out of that. And that's where a lot of the PIP comes from, is what I've read.
Yeah, that's what it is, but it can create a rash. It can literally go flush over. I've had a shoulder before, and it flushed into the tricep. The entire area was all through here, and it's almost like the steroid, the entire oil leaked out and went everywhere. And now the one time it happened, that one was pretty bad. But that's one reason why first off, quads really hurt me, so I just avoid them. I have a lot of nerves in my quads. Some people are perfectly fine. It's the best spot for them. If you can handle it, it's probably actually the best location in the body. I don't know. I just I got a rash one time from it. I could hardly walk, and it just wasn't worth it for me. I mean, I've had the rash several times, but not very frequently. I probably haven't had it for 2 years or so since I've been on actual just TRT kind of stuff. I don't think I've had it.
I want to get back to the test flu, but I just want to talk about quads. I am not a big fan of quads. When I first started into this realm, I've never liked reaching around and doing glutes. I always like to have two hands to be able to do my shots. And that's why I shied away from delts too. Granted, I was using freaking harpoons at the time because I didn't know any better, probably like 23 gauge, 1.5 inch, something like that. I don't remember what it was, but I remember, man, it was the last shot of, I think, the first cycle. And man, I put that needle in my quad, and my quad just started, you ever know when your muscles like randomly just start like twitching? Like it just started doing that. Like my leg did not like it. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. And so I switched over to the other one. And then another time that I went into the quads and it just didn't like it. Then I went into the shoulder, and man, I pushed the needle in and it tapped something. There was a little resistance. And I hated needles at this point. There was some resistance. I don't know what it was, but I was like, fuck it, I'm getting this done. And pushed it through, did the shot, pulled it out. Dude, there's blood just trickling down my arm, like a good stream of blood. Go to sleep. Dude, I wake up, my shoulder is jacked up, killing me. I feel like I tapped a tendon, and then I went right through it, and man, that hurt for a while.
There's probably a nerve that you went through. I feel like whenever you get like stuff, areas that stick like that, it's either a vein or a nerve. Pretty sure. So I'll tell you my first injection ever, my self-injection. Dude, I want to cry thinking about it, man. Okay. So sitting on the side of a bathtub, right? And I'm pitting myself, first time ever. And I'm scared of needles, right? I'm like the worst bodybuilder ever. And still to this day. And probably why I only stay on TRT. So I go to inject my quad, and I'm like flexing my quad, trying to figure out the sweep, right? The sweet spot, make sure you're not going to hit a vein. I don't even think I've scouted out for veins, to be honest, back then. And then I'm like, all right, cool. I got the spot, right? I'm sitting on the tub, flexing, go to put the needle in, still flexing. And then I'm like, it hurts so bad. And then I'm just like, whew, deep breaths, stay calm, deep breaths. Okay. And like the leg goes, doosh, 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 like it spazzes, like literally, like I must have hit a nerve and nicked a nerve, and it like kicked my whole leg, kind of like when they're testing your leg with the hammer. That's how much it kicked so hard. And I'm like, okay, settle back down. All right, I'm good. Going a little bit deeper. Doosh, doosh, doosh. Like every single time I went to go in deeper, kept hitting. I'm like, I'm like sweating bullets by this point. Get a little bit deeper. Kicks it a few more times. Okay, I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm good, right? Like, all right. I'm going to look away. It's in there. It's not going anywhere. So I turn away, and meanwhile, I'm still flexing like an idiot. The whole time. That's really the whole reason why this transpired.
Oh, shit.
And I turn my head away, and I'm looking, and I take my hand like this. So I take my two fingers and then the palm, and I palm it, right? So I'm like, I'm just going to get this out. So I'm like sitting there, like pushing. And like as the oil is coming out, and I don't even know how much oil by this point I get out, it just is hurting so bad. And it keeps like throbbing the nerve and kicking the nerve. Well, like it's in my leg, and I'm flexing like an idiot. So, and then after a while, like I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I pulled it out, looked at how much I got. I think I got through like 0.25 cc's, maybe if I was lucky. And then I was just like, needle at the side, pass out. Like I didn't pass out. I didn't completely pass out, but like gotcha. I was starting to black out. Yeah. Where I like had to lay against the wall, and so probably doing it on the side of the bathtub was not a good idea. Yeah, that was my first story ever.
That sounds rough, man.
It was a rough experience.
Yeah, as soon as when those muscles start twitching, dude, that freaks me out because your muscles contracting, opening. There's a metal needle sitting in there. Oh man, yeah, that's what's funny that people think that because I talk about TRT all the time and I do 4 injections a week, that I'm just totally cool with needles, and for the most part I am. But when shit goes south or something weird happens, I get super warm, super flush. I get clammy, just recently. And man, when I go in to do anything with blood, like drawing blood, donating blood, when they tell me I have good veins, I know that I'm screwed. Anyone that tells me I have good veins always messes up on me. I don't know why it is. So I walk into the time before this, I went to this place, One Blood, to donate blood. And they give me, it's dope. They give me like $10 Walmart gift cards. I get a cool shirt, and then I just get some cookies and some apple juice. But man, I get this guy, newer guy. He's cool. He's nice. I got the veins popping. He's like, "Oh, you got good veins," and I'm like, "Okay, bud. All right, well." And dude, I look away when they do it. Goes in. I'm like, "Okay, he's good." Then I see it come back out, and then it's going back in, and this is, I think they use a 16 gauge needle at this place to draw the blood.
Yeah.
So that's 3 times I've been stabbed with a 16 gauge, and man, I start sweating. The lady across, like the lady that actually was good at doing this, she brought me over a wet towel, put it on my head, but yeah, it's crazy because it doesn't hurt, but it's just like a physiological reaction. It's not a physical per se, but it's just how your body reacts to that, and
I don't know, it hurts pretty bad to me at least,
dude.
Yeah.
So we did want to get back to test flu. So yeah. Test flu, and I don't know much about it because I've never had it. I mean, you're saying that I could be doing TRT. I could wake up tomorrow feeling like like I'm super sick, or is this more happen when people are either starting out and their body's adjusting to the testosterone, or is it more like high level gear, 5, 6, 700 type stuff?
I think it can be any amount. I'm pretty sure what happens is you actually go like directly into like a capillary or something like that. Like it's like almost directly into the bloodstream. So I think it's actually like the benzyl alcohol or something like that, and like or the steroids get into the system way too quickly. It's something along the lines of that. And it's been years since I even looked it up because like it made sense when I looked it up. And I think it has to do with like nicking a blood vessel or going like basically directly into a blood vessel, and you have a terrible response to it because it goes in the system so fast. I don't know if it's partially the oils or the benzyl alcohol or or literally the steroid going in way too quickly. That's why you have to shoot it into a muscle and you don't shoot it into a vein because you want it to absorb in. And I think it has to do with the quick absorption.
Well, that could be, but that's also kind of how like what Tren cough, when Tren, same idea, when it gets into those capillaries, for some reason it gets sent to the freaking lungs. And that's why I've never tried Tren, I've never had it, but people say like, you feel like you're going to die. Like there is no not coughing when that happens. Like you're coughing for however long.
There was a meme one time, and it was probably the Gains that posted it, right? And it was like something when you get Tren cough and just like, and like it keeps rotating into like different like scenes from movies, right? And then eventually gets to this scene, and this guy that starts like coughing up blood, and like he's like dying basically. And it's probably like an Ebola scene or something like that. I don't even remember. It was like years ago, but I was like, relatable.
I've never had it, but I can't remember. I think it was like Mark Plummer was saying, he's like, when you feel it coming on, like it's coming, and you just gotta like grab something and just buckle down because there's nothing you can do.
It was really awkward. One time I did it before, and like I've only had it probably like 3 times, right? And now I don't do a bunch of Tren, right? But yeah, if it happens, it happens. And I've had it 3 times in total, probably maybe 4 times max. Relatively speaking, they were more on the mild side. But one time I did it before I got into a hot shower, right? Which you would think would help, right? You would think like the steam would open up your lungs. I can't make it up. I went down to my knees in fetal position, thinking my ribs were going to break. I was coughing so hard. I thought my ribs actually were going to get thrown out of place.
Wow. That's violent, man. Damn.
It wasn't a pretty picture. Everyone wants to unimagine that now, but that's
So I was actually going to talk about, like you said that your favorite test is a nanthate. I can see that, a little bit shorter half-life. So you probably get a little more of a boost quickly. Like for TRT, like the day after you inject, you get that libido going on, you get the high energy. For me, I mean, I like testosterone. I like anything that you can inject. I'm a big fan. But for me, Sustanon's what does that for me. Like, dude, I do, 100 milligrams of Sustanon. The next morning, man, I'm waking up feeling strong, and sex is on my mind. So I like that. It gives me that extra boost over like Cypionate. What are your thoughts on Sustanon?
Yeah, Sustanon's just overpriced testosterone, in my opinion. So like the whole point to testosterone is to get it to those, any type of steroid is to get it to optimal levels and to peg it there and hold it there. And Sustanon, it's more stable. It's actually like one of the least stable forms of testosterone because you're having 4 different half-life. So one's half-lifing out while the other one's like slowly troughing up, but like it's actually not a long trough up anyways. So it's like doing a test E for the longer end of it, or it might be a test C on the longer end of it. I think it's a test C ester or something like that.
It's isocaproate.
Yep.
I think anyway.
Yeah,
I can look it up. I did know this, but it's been a
4
long
different
day.
half-lives. Yeah, Sustanon has 4 different half-lives built into it. So literally, like as these are half-lifing out, your milligrams basically the milligrams that you're putting into your body are starting to half-life out and reduce down, and then you're left with like 1 or 2 that are a little bit longer. But like then you have to re-inject to re-up it, and so it's actually not a stable testosterone ester at all.
Yeah, so now I remember it's 30 milligrams of propionate, 60 milligrams of phenylpropionate. So we're going from short to long, and then you've got isocaproate and then decanoate.
Yeah. Oh, there's decanoate in there?
It's not undecanoate, it's decanoate. So it doesn't have that crazy long, like 12-week freaking not 12 weeks, but yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people mentioned that, like when I was talking about that Sustanon giving me issues, they're like, oh yeah, lots of people have PIP from Sustanon because of the propionate. But man, I've had Sustanon before and I didn't have any issues with it. This bottle is just, I don't know if someone like knocked over the benzyl alcohol in this vial and then they filled, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like on Seinfeld where, what's his name? The governor guy, Rudy Giuliani, they knocked the fat ice cream into his blood test and his cholesterol like spiked super high and he loses the election. I don't know if it was something like that. Someone knocked over that damn, I don't know what it is, but
it's hilarious.
But yeah, Sustanon, man, I've never done a cycle with Sustanon, so I've never done it at high dosages, but I'd be interested to see what freaking, a full 250 of Sustanon with that propionate in that, what that would do for me in the day after. That would be interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people like Sustanon combined with Deca. That's like an old school thing. It was like, if you have Deca, you have to have Sustanon with it. I'm like, it tests the test. Like when you look back, it's like funny some of the stories I used to hear about stuff.
Well, I think it's the most used the compound for TRT like worldwide. A lot of the European countries, Sustanon is like the de facto. They get the 1 ml bottles, the whatever, Ampules. You know what I'm talking about.
Ampules.
The Ampules. Oh, I freaking hate Ampules, man. I'm not going to
hit your finger.
I was in another country and I happened to have 300 milligram Ampules, and I don't like Ampules. I wasn't trying to use all of one at once. So I would take them and I put them all in one bottle. And toward the end, I started to notice when I was drawing, I'm seeing these little slivers of light in the thing. And I'm like, what is this? And I look at the bottle, I put it up to the thing, and I'm like, that's freaking glass shards. That's little glass shards from it breaking. And so then I started looking into, they have the syringe filters, so you can draw as much in, and then they had the built-in filters to filter that stuff out. So I was like, screw that. I'm not dealing with syringe filters. So I would sit up there with the bottle and I'd get it right up close to my computer monitor so I could see any slivers come through, and then I'd push them back up and I'd move the needle to try to get a different spot. So I was spending like 5-10 minutes trying to draw this stuff because I'm being cheap and I don't want to throw away this testosterone. But it got to the point where I have like 1 ml left in there, and it's not worth it, man. I'm not injecting glass into my freaking fat or shoulder,
No.
But I don't like the amps at all.
Yeah, I have I forgot what I had an ampule. Like I've only had like 2 or 3 ampules ever, and I can't remember. I think it was just testosterone, to be honest. I know people like make that fake like Tren Hex stuff. That was like, they try to make it look like they label it as Parabolin and it's Tren Hex, and then they put it in ampules and 76 milligram per milliliter. I'm like, yeah, Parabolin has been made in like 30-40 years, you guys. Like that's not real.
It's past its expiration date at that point.
Yeah.
But they're just trying to make it look like the real, like they were trying to make it look like the pharmaceutical stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's crazy.
And they labeled it a 76 milligram per milliliter one. It's like, well, Tren E is the same thing, pretty much. It's just a shorter ester. So I did listen to a podcast actually the other day, and I don't listen to podcasts or a short little YouTube video on Tren. It is longer. Like I was right, it is a longer ester. I don't know why I could not find the ester on the last. Oh, that was the last podcast that like is no longer in existence. But remember how we were looking up and it said like it was like less than a 24-hour half life. It was like an 8-hour half life. I was like, this isn't right. I was like, the only Tren that was ever legal is really long ester, and it's Tren Hex in it. So
Tren's scary, man. But I was gonna what David was referring to is the episode. So the service that we used, it stores the video or the audio and the video from these calls. It stores them for 1 week, and I forgot to download it. So we did a whole podcast, and now I don't have it. And so I had to reach out to them to see if there's a way they can retrieve it from their servers. But yeah. So here's a question for you, David. So you're on TRT, right? For the rest of your life, you're good.
Yeah.
If you could only use one other compound, what compound are you using for the rest of your life?
So now I already know which one. If you're talking a steroid, I know the steroid. Are you talking about just a hormone or peptide or protein in particular? Like, what are you talking about? Narrow it down for me.
I would say anything that'd be associated with gaining muscle. Like, I mean, I'm talking like Winstrol, Deca, Tren, B-ball, Superdrol.
Okay, so we're talking steroids then, in the steroid realm. Okay, so if I had a choice and it was like non-steroid, like peptide, it'd be growth hormone for number 2. But if we're talking about in the steroid realm, Primobolan 100%.
Why Primobolan? I know Arnold loved that. Not a big fan of Arnold anymore because he doesn't like freedom now that he's rich and lives in California. But anyway, why Primo? It's a champagne of steroids, according to Arnold.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to hear from a lot of people. It's just impossible to find it is the issue. Now, Primo, not only does it balance out your estrogen level, so it helps with the balance of testosterone and estrogen and all that other fun jazz that you get from it. You get anabolic properties out of it. It's very, very mild. You don't have really side effects. In fact, you probably have less side effects. Like if you're taking your testosterone levels up past super physiological realms, and you have Primo in there to help balance it out, you get less aromatization out of it. So it's just that kind of happy balance between the two, and you get anabolic properties out of that Primo, and you're not sacrificing health while doing it. It's not like taking Tren or taking Deca where you're talking about a NOR19 realm. I do love Deca, but that's besides the point. But Primo is 100%, like not even no one's even close to Primo.
Gotcha. So for you, it sounds like if you could only use the one compound, you'd be looking to be able to get your testosterone levels above physiological levels, and then have the Primo to help with the health stuff and kind of to even out all the hormones.
You don't even really need to take it. If I call it sports TRT dosages, anyone that listens to this by now at this point, they know it's 300 milligrams per milliliter. If you can have a 300 milligram per milliliter of testosterone, you can run Primo at 200 milligrams. Shoot, you can run Primo 400 milligrams, 500 milligrams, 600 milligrams. It's like one of those substances that's very, very, I don't want to say, people are going to hear this and think, it's safe to abuse Primo. Like, no, but it is like people that have aromatization issues, you can run your Primo higher than your testosterone and you don't have to worry about the estrogenic issues because it helps to balance that aspect out of the testosterone just in general. And not even just the testosterone, just in general, it helps with the aromatization issues. So that's my 100% go-to. You don't have to run your testosterone higher. You can run your Primo at the same level as your test. You can run above your test. You really should have very little side effects. It doesn't tend to have the balding issues that you could get like with some of the other drugs, the other DHT style drugs.
Talking like Masteron.
Masteron's known for hair fallout big time. And I guess would you want me to go into like what oral steroid would I pick? Or just leave it at that. We'll talk about that another time.
Leave it at that. I mean, I have to say mine's Deca. Okay. Just because, for me, I mean, I just started Deca again about a week ago. And I'm not saying I felt the benefits yet because it's such a super long half-life. But I don't know, man. I've been in the gym this week, and I know it's probably a placebo effect, but I feel stronger in the gym. And I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm a fast responder to Deca, unlike the rest of the world. But it's a placebo, but I do feel stronger. And when I'm on Deca, I'm 39 years old. My shoulder, I've dislocated it. I've talked about it on the show. Both my shoulders hurt, even though I haven't injured this one. But that Deca just helps with the joint pain so much. Not a miracle drug, but I just love it for that. And at 100 milligrams, I know it's not like, I'm not going to be getting massive amounts of muscle off of that, but I just feel like kind of those two different pathways, two different compounds are more beneficial to me than if I was just on 300 milligrams a test. But I could also do 500 milligrams a test and 100 milligrams of Deca. And that'd be cool.
Yeah. So Deca is probably going to fall into like because Primo and Master and they're relatively similar to each other. Deca would probably be my next one in line if we're talking about injectables, 100%. It does have that effect. It's fast. People think Deca is like slow acting. Yeah, on paper it's slow acting. You can get joint relief like within a week to 2 weeks of your first shot. It's relatively noticeable. You don't have to take NPP to get that noticeable boost in your joints and stuff like that. In fact, I utilized Deca at 100 milligram per week, which is plenty for me. I was on 200 milligrams a test, and I even told my doctor I was going to do it. This is post shoulder surgery, labrum surgery. It was BPC 157, TB 500. Actually, did I run? I may have not run TB 500. I was running the BPC 157 to stay off of Advil and stuff like that, and then I added in 100 milligrams of Deca. And I was doing, I think, 2 IUs of growth hormone. And I was dumbbell pressing 90-pound dumbbells a month after my surgery. And the joint pain basically went away. And when I came off the Deca, guess what? I noticed some inflammation coming back in the joint. And it kind of sucks, but I'm not going to stay off Deca year round. There's no way.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't understand about Deca is Deca is not magically going in there and healing your joint. It's not like the negative part about Deca is that, especially for, me and you work out in the gym, is I get in there and I'm like, oh yeah, my shoulders are feeling good today. I'm jumping up, I'm hitting PRs today. And then, you don't realize, but you're actually doing some damage to your shoulder. It's just masking the pain because it fills out that's what is it? What the hell is the fluid? So
is it sciatic fluid?
No, synovial fluid. It's the fluid between your joints. And, I guess the theory is that Deca adds more to that. I've never really heard that confirmed, but either way, it helps.
So it can actually aid in repairing that joint cavity to a degree because it increases collagen synthesis, which is that's a really big benefit of Deca. The actual medical benefit of Deca is not just the fluid, which is probably the number one reason why they prescribe it, but the actual collagen synthesis can actually create some long-term healing effects. I've known doctors to prescribe Deca and keep people on it year round, no joke, for people that actually have for medical uses. But when you're talking about medical uses of Deca, I don't know, have you ever looked into the actual medical use of Deca, the dosages and stuff like that?
I haven't gone super deep into it. I remember reading that they use it for burn victims sometimes, and because I'm assuming for the collagen that it helps repair the skin or something like that. But I know it's been used for muscle wasting, for HIV, cancer. I don't know about cancer, but yeah, keep going if you want. I love that.
Yeah. So it's funny. So in studies, what people don't talk about is in the testosterone world, you have normal levels 200 milligrams per week, 100 milligrams per week, or 200 milligrams per week, and then you have 300 milligrams per week, and then people are like, oh, you're super physiological now, which you absolutely are. But they go up to studies up to 600 milligrams per week, and this is in college students that they did these studies, and it was a very, very reputable study that the people do utilize the study time again for, but no one talks about 600 milligrams per milliliter. That's an actual amount I'm pretty sure that a doctor can prescribe. I know they can go up to 500. I'm not sure if they're allowed to go to 600. And as long as they're running labs and stuff like that. So the interesting thing is when you ever hear about Deca is basically your general rule of thumb, you always have a 2-to-1 ratio, testosterone to Deca ratio, so you don't get erectile dysfunction. Now, a doctor is not going to prescribe you 600 milligrams of testosterone and 300 milligrams of Deca. They could legally, I'm pretty sure, but it's pushing the limitations, and they wouldn't risk their license on something like that.
There has to be a reason for that.
There would have to be an actual medical reason for it. But what a doctor could do is they could have you on 200 milligrams of testosterone, and guess what? The studies on Deca go up to. Therapeutic use of Deca goes up to 600 milligrams per week. Woo. So Yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't know about. I was doing research on like basically the actual medical uses for what the histories of it and stuff like that. And that's kind of the number that they ended up lining on. It's between 300 to 600 is real true therapeutic dose of Deca. Now, do they still use those dosages in the real world? I don't really think it's common unless if it's literally like a therapeutic use of something going on with your joints where they literally need to stop the atrophy or something like that. That's the only way I could think of it being prescribed at that dose, because if your test is low and your Deca is high, most people are going to have those issues. Some people don't. Some people are perfectly fine with high Deca and low test, but it's a very, very rare use case. And it's the bio-individuality and the pathwaying and how you break down the drugs in your body and stuff. But yeah, that's a long story. Is it goes up to 600 milligrams on both ends of the spectrum.
Wow. I actually want to touch on this 600 milligram test thing. But I did want, just before we get off Deca, I had a buddy, when he was younger, he did a Deca only cycle, and he said he had ED for like months after, just because of that long half-life. And he was like, early 20s. So same realm as me, where I didn't know anything. That's why I was taking Winstrol with Clomid as a PCT. Same reason he did it. Probably the only bottle he could get. And he's like, oh, steroids, I'm getting some Deca. And then, but I wanted to ask you, so I know that, there's that study where they did 600 milligrams of tests per week, and, they didn't see any like health, risks or like negative stuff. So my question to you is, as a 39-year-old, that I'm fairly healthy, I eat fairly healthy sometimes. But I mean, what do you think health-wise would happen to me if I did, let's say, 2 12-week 500 milligram of test cycles per year? So 24 weeks out of the year, I'm on 500 milligrams of test. Yep. I'm not talking about Winstrol, D-ball. I'm not talking about Tren, any of this stuff, just straight testosterone. What do you think? I mean, do you think that's taking years off my life? Do you think, is the cholesterol and lipid aspect going to shorten my life?
Okay, so let's jump into it really fast. So this is what the study showed.
If you could just give me the green light, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm about to give you the green light, but let me explain a little bit of detail before I give people the green light. So 200, what they found in the studies, and this is kind of tried and true across all the studies, is there's a weird threshold that people have. And that's why I did my study at 600 milligrams of test with my blood work to prove that it is bio-individual. So 200 milligrams per week of testosterone doesn't crush a lipid profile. In fact, it can improve it. 300 milligram per week plus, we tend to see a 25% reduction in HDL, and inversely related is going to affect your LDL in the same aspect, because HDL and LDL balance each other out. If HDL is higher, it pushes down your LDL, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to jump into my YouTube video that I did on my blood work, which was 600 milligrams per 600 milligrams per week for 8 weeks. It was like maybe it was 6 weeks. It wasn't that long, just to make sure that it was stable in my system for long enough to where I could see it affecting my cholesterol. I've never had cholesterol issues. Keep in mind, cholesterol issues do not run in my family either, as far as I'm concerned. Now, as far as I know. My cholesterol profiles were perfect. They were almost like equivalent to a female, which for those of you that don't look at blood work, females have really good cholesterol compared to males. So what I would recommend is if you're running a 500 milligram per week cycle, that obviously you will legally get prescribed, then you want to run blood work, a snapshot of blood work after a 4 to 6 week period of time, probably around the 8 week marker, to see if it affects your cholesterol profile negatively. Now, you may be a person that can run 400 to 450 milligrams per week without having that negative impact on your cholesterol profile. And then you hit 500 and you break that threshold. The next, it's like 25%. It's crazy. I've actually seen it in lab work with people where, like, as soon as they cusp the threshold, it's just like 25% off the top. It's like that's a very, very tried and true number. I don't know why that's the number, the percentage number, but every single time I see a cholesterol profile get hit by a hormonal level, it's 25% almost every single time. And what they found out is it actually doesn't increase. So if, like, in theory, 300 milligrams, if it crushes your profile by 25%, 600 milligrams is going to make it much worse. It might be a 2 or 3% difference. And then, like, you can go higher and then high, like, and then I don't know how high they've actually gone. 600, I think, is about the highest they've ever gone to, as far as studies that I know of, unless there's experimental studies out there, but that it's about 25% reduction. And then that's it. Now, if you are a person like that, then you just need to be careful. You want to get your calcium score tested, which basically tests your plaque buildup over time. And you probably want to get an EKG scan done, which is good for us as males anyways, just to make sure, because we're going to be the ones that get the plaque buildup more frequently than a woman is. As long as we're healthy males, like that's something that is good to track.
That's interesting. So that's interesting. The 25% drop. And then, you're saying as you go higher, it doesn't like crush your HDL, like, in a single ratio, like 500 drops at 25. So 1,000 is going to drop at 50%. It's the same idea as gear where, once you get past 500 and then you go to 600, you get a little bit less benefit, so it's the same, it's kind of an inverse thing. So you think that if me or you or anyone out there could say, okay, I'm going to run 300 for a little bit, and then I'm going to get blood work. And you're saying to get blood work a few weeks after, just to see what it did to your profile, or while you're on?
Yeah, you should definitely be on, because you want to know where your threshold is based off your body individuality. Now, I will say the only number I didn't talk about was estrogen. You have to be careful with your estrogen, because estrogen, if it gets you high, can cause blood clotting. Now, it gets kind of weird because there's a ratio between testosterone to estrogen where you're still okay. But like what happened with mine is I was at 110 at 600 milligrams per week on my estrogen, which is fine ratio wise. But then I came back down to my 300 milligram per milliliter, or 300 milligram, I keep saying that, 300 milligram per week. And my estrogen profile was still at like a 77, which is not good. Like I want to get that down to like, it's not bad, but I want to get that down to like the 40 to 50 range. It was a little bit higher than I would have liked. So they can cause blood clotting over time, the estrogen.
Interesting. Yeah, I know there's estrogen. Estrogen is one of those things that it's one of the most controversial things in TRT, in bodybuilding. You've got, people in certain camps that are like freaking like passionate about the fact that Arimidex is freaking poison, and, let your estrogen get as high as it wants to go because it's neuroprotective and cardioprotective. So, I mean, I don't personally lean into extremes usually. I find people that talk in extremes and black and white, usually not the type of people that I like to associate with. There's very few things in this world that are black and white. There's always, especially when you get into hormones and the body, dude, you could take 500, I could take 500, I could break out in crazy acne, and you could have perfectly clear skin. It's everyone's so individual. And like, I think we were talking on the last podcast, that they're doing like, they're trying to do like genetic testing on bodybuilders, and they're seeing like these different like gene expressions that like certain people have that other people don't, so like someone like Ronnie Coleman, I don't know what the hell is different about Ronnie Coleman, but there's something different about Ronnie Coleman. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no amount of gear is going to get me looking like Ronnie Coleman. No amount of chicken, rice, no amount of yeah buddies is going to get me looking like Ronnie Coleman ever. He just has different genetics, just like those Belgian blue cows. Yeah. They have that weird myostatin gene, inhibiting gene. I mean, you could take old Bessie and throw her on the treadmill and feed her, whatever you want. She's not looking like, the Belgian blue. And that's just, genetics are so powerful, and we're all so freaking different.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about the bodybuilding world, it's really, really hard for people to actually understand is like, people think that some of these guys are on so much gear and they could be taking bare minimum, and they're just genetic freaks. And people don't want to understand that because they will never be able to relate to that person. If you're a 1 in a million person, you're a 1 in a million person. The other 999,999,000 aren't going to be able to correlate to you. It's mind blowing. And I see it time and time again because I'm in the sport where you take a guy that's natural and they will beat on natural guys. It doesn't matter. Like I was in junior nationals, I had a guy that was 100% natural that lost to a 100% natural guy. And this is at an unnatural show. And then the one guy that beat my client went pro, and my client missed it by one slot. And I walked up to the guy that beat him, and I go, congratulations on your pro card, first off. You looked phenomenal. He won the whole show, actually. Wow. He was the best person at the show by a long shot. And I was like, I just wanted you to know this is the first time I've seen that I know two natural guys battling it out for basically the number one spot is where they would have ended up.
Yeah.
together. And I was like, it was really cool to see. And it's just genetics and hard work and discipline. Now, gene expressions can change over time too. That might be one of the reasons why is like bodybuilders. Like I think some bodybuilders, like if you look at Elite Priest, now he had good genetics from his parents from the get-go, but he still started training when he was like 12 years old. Your IGF-1 levels are like 1,000 at that age and stuff like that sometimes. So I think that actually can create more. We were talking about with the Tony's podcast, we were talking about muscle hyperplasia and muscle oh my gosh,
it wasn't regeneration, but it's like more, your body is actually creating like more muscle cells.
Tissue. Why can't I think right now? I'm so tired. Gosh.
Well, I'll let you think about that for a second. I mean, I'm going to tie into this. You know, so I mean, if you think about it, you know, most of the guys that get into bodybuilding, it's not because they go to the gym when they're 16, 17 and have a hard time putting on muscle. You know, so someone's 16, 17, 18 in high school, they're going to be possibly on the football team, on the weightlifting team, because they have good genetics for it. So, you know, like myself, I had a hard time putting on muscle back when I was younger. So bodybuilding, that's not going to happen for me. But, you know, you got Ronnie Coleman in college and he's throwing up 4 plates natty. And he's like, well, hey, oh, wow, you've got this that can help me grow muscle even more. Okay. So, you know, I think that, you know, a lot of these guys that get into bodybuilding have good genetics, and because that's how they got into it in the first place, because they were freaks in high school, then they're freaks in college, and now they're freaks on stage.
Yeah, that was the Phil Heath. And actually Phil Heath and I, we were talking in like an hour one time in a hotel gym. And the only reason why he talked to me is because like I made him laugh, because I was like, specs on or off for the picture, right? And he started dying laughing. He's like, dude, it looks like you just rolled out of bed. What do you mean? And then he's like, I don't care what you do. And then we started talking, like we were cracking up for like the whole time. So he was talking about basically how bodybuilders, they get genetically blessed athletes, but they accidentally fall into the sport. He accidentally kind of fell into bodybuilding. He was a basketball player that was jacked out of his mind. Like you could see the muscle bodies, the shoulders, the biceps, the calves, they were all in place already. Keon, when he was in high school, he had muscle bodies for days, and just no replacing that.
Yeah. There was a guy in my high school. His name was, I don't know how to say his full name, but his last name was Machado. And he's one of those really tall, just thick people, you know, just naturally. And I remember, I mean, I think he could throw up like 405, like 5 times. And this is like, you know, this is like 18 years old, 17 years old. And I mean, I couldn't touch that. No one in the gym could touch that. But he was just one of those, you know, like you see those like Samoan guys, you know, they're just big as it is, you know, and a lot of them get into football. You know, they're just bigger humans. They just have different genetics and they're just stronger. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nowadays, you know, they want to look at everyone's equal. Everyone has the same, what is it? I mean, you know, this world's getting freaking crazy, man. You know, everyone, what is it? Equal outcome is what it is. You know, everyone should have an equal outcome. If you work, you know, you put in a little bit of work and Billy works harder than you should still both get the trophy. That's not the way life works. You know, and this is kind of random going off topic, but it pops into my head when I go to the gym. At my gym, it's a very diverse group of people. Like, I mean, all different, you know, ethnic, all different races. And man, when you watch the freaking news and they talk about all this systemic racism, and granted, we're 2 white people, severely white people on here talking about this. And I know there is racism out there, but when I go to my freaking gym, man, I see so many different groups of you know, black people, white people working out together. You know, I see them helping out each other. And it's interesting that in the gym, I see there's so much like camaraderie. I think it's a lot of like respect, you know, like if I see anyone who has a great physique in my gym, they automatically have my respect because I know what they've done to achieve that. So I don't know. It's just kind of a random thought. I just sit here and I'm like, on the TV and on the news, they're saying that, you know, everyone's just racist and hates each other. And then I go to the gym and everyone gets along. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I was talking with this with one of my, actually, we used to work out together. One of my black buddies, when COVID was going on, there was a really cool facility that we were training at. And that's where I ran into him. Really accomplished individual. and we were just training in the gym. This was months later. And he's like, you know what the society's missing is what you and I are doing in here right now. Like, it's teamwork. You're working together to get to a place. That's what society is about. That's why we're supposed to be here in society today, is because we have all worked together to get to a higher, not a higher being, but like a higher purpose. And we continually progress. And we're hitting this point where people are trying to stop us from continually progressing, to continually think. My generation and earlier have basically been taught not to think, to just do. And that's where brainwashing gets occurred, is basically like where our attention spans are under 3 seconds now. That happened when Instagram became a thing. Within like a year or 2 years, Instagram flipped it from 6 seconds to 3 seconds. And it's probably shorter now with TikTok. You have 15-second videos. Now, so it is definitely a societal issue. But at the end of the day, like, most people are good people down to the nature, and what's being publicized is two completely different things. Most people like don't see colors at all, like for the most part, at least in my personal life, right? Now, do I believe that there are some systemic issues? 100%. In every single society all over the world, there are definitely systemic issues. And if someone says otherwise, that's completely wrong. Like, there's systemic issues. The government oppresses people. We're seeing a global oppression happen right now. So, I completely agree. It's just, I love seeing teamwork. I love seeing people work together. I love seeing people uplift each other. But that's not fun to see for people. People like to see people that are doing worse than them to feel better about themselves. And it's the most ass backwards logic that we've ever seen. And capitalism versus socialism, the viewpoints is, a capitalistic person is going to look towards themselves to fix themselves, to better themselves. And what happens is everything else around them starts to get better because your perspective is changing. At a socialistic standpoint, it's the opposite. Everything else is broken around you. How can we make it equal to fix everything? And then that will fix me too. So two completely different standpoints. And there was a really good philosopher, and I forgot the guy's name. He's still alive. That basically used that analogy. And it's very, very cool. It has to do with interpersonal to enhance the external.
That's interesting. That, you know, it's interesting. I don't want to personally touch the capitalism, socialism thing to get deep like that. But, you know, what's sad is this world is so freaking cool, and we're only here for such a short time. There's so many cool things that we can do as humans in this world. I mean, you could, you know, watch documentaries on space, nature. You could learn computer engineering. You could learn to, you know, build race cars. And some people are so shallow-minded and short-sighted that the most interesting thing to them is the color of someone's fucking skin. And that's really, really sad. Like, you know, you can't get past that someone has darker or lighter skin than you. That's what you focus on in your life and online. And, you know, it's freaking crazy. You know, I had some of the nicest people I've ever met are African-American, and some of the hardest working people. I worked with a guy named Stan, and he was from Trinidad. He was an older dude. He used to tell me that he used to make his own toys and his own shoes because they were that poor. All they ate was yucca. If you go to Pollo Tropical and you get yucca, it's delicious, by the way, but it's like a potato, kind of.
Yeah.
But they would make yucca bread, yucca flour. Everything was yucca because it grew down there. And Stan was one of the hardest working guys that I ever met because he came from nothing, having nothing. And he saw in America what you can do if you work hard. And man, I was so cool with Stan. He invited me to his house for his like church gathering. So picture me, pale, pasty looking white dude. I mean, I'm super white. My wife tells me that, like, when I talk to people on the phone, I sound extra white. Like, oh, hello. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was in a house with I was the only white person in this house. I mean, they were cooking oxtail, which is real traditional Caribbean stuff.
So good.
Which is really good, by the way, if you've never tried it. But it was so cool. I was in a house with like 40 Black people from his church, and everyone was so nice and so cool. I had such a good time. And I don't know. It's sad that some people are so focused on race that that's all they can think about. Really sad.
Yeah, but like it's like race is like a made up thing. It really is. Don't get me wrong. Like genetic traits and stuff like that. That's more of a demographic thing if you want to look at it in that aspect, and like traits and how they were passed out through history. I think that's really cool. But when you have to look at us, like the pigmentation of your skin, which is what, like 3 genes or something like that, or 10 genes out of the whole entire spectrum, and it just affects your melanin. That's one thing I've never understood. Now, but I think society has like come to the conclusion that basically, like, if you are truly racist, like truly racist, you're outed from society big time, and it's a big deal. And which is at least a good shift, you know. And there's a lot of backwards thinking that was in the older generations. I'm sure some of it was passed down in like the boonies and stuff like that, like where like there's not a lot of people around, but it's like it's one of the most ass backwards ways of thinking, and that I've never understood. I never will understand. And yeah, I think we should leave it at that. I mean, those it just I can't relate.
If you think about it, if you think about it, like you know, there's species of dogs where there's 3 different colors of the exact same dog. You know what I'm saying? Like they're exactly the same thing. They just have there's different hair color. And people who are so focused on race, that's literally the difference of how they treat certain people.
Well, and crazy thing is, I mean, if you look at like Hitler, right? The ultimate German was blonde hair, blue eyes, the Aryan race, right? But the crazy thing is guess what? They were killing Jewish people just because of what they believed, because they controlled the money. They were the bankers. And that's crazy to me too. Like people, like, we just think about that mindset. And all Germans weren't blonde hair and blue eyes. Were you put on a pedestal if you did? Probably. Like I didn't live back then, and thank God I didn't. But you know, it just the extremes, all extremes to me, when you're talking about black and like literally like the black and white lines, like the newspaper kind of stuff. Like there is, if you think in extremes, you are extremely incorrect. Because there is, if you're thinking in polar opposites, guess what's in between? There's a lot more in between those lines than you think. Like that's why, like, you shouldn't be extremely conservative. You shouldn't be extremely liberal. Like there's all this in between. And the majority of society, like what we get televised in the polar opposites. But guess where people are? They're like smack dab in the middle. They're like here or here, here or here, here or here.
Yeah.
And but that's how it's televised.
You know, that's interesting. I'll tie this into this current world that we're in. You know, the way the Nazis did a lot of stuff is they would take over the media stuff and they would put out the news. So it's real easy to brainwash people when, you know, every news place is telling you the exact same thing. You start to believe it. You know, just I think it was yesterday, Joe Rogan was talking to that guy, Sujay Vupta. I can't remember his name, but he's an anchor on CNN. Yeah. And he asked him, he's like, how come people on CNN, on your network, were running stories saying that I was taking horse medicine when I got COVID, you know, and making it seem like ivermectin is this freaking, you know, just veterinary stuff that no one would want to take, when it's A, was prescribed by my doctor, B, the guy who created it won a Nobel Prize, C, Merck gives away 100 million doses a year because it's used for parasite stuff all over the world. But when you've got CSN, MSNBC, whatever else, all the other ones, all making it out to be like, oh, ivermectin, why would you take that? That's horse dewormer, when it's done so much other stuff. But when you have all this media telling you all the same stuff, and they've been caught doing it's very parallel to Nazi Germany, where they're trying to brainwash people. You know, I don't want to get too deep into it, but when I see stuff, when I watch the news, and I'm saying, that doesn't make fucking sense to me. That does not make sense. That is not common sense. That's when I'm like, you know, and I don't know. Some people don't have that. But for me, when I don't understand something, I follow the money, and it seems to make a lot more sense.
Absolutely. There's been a lot that's happened with what's transpired. In fact, there's a lot of people that can't afford, and I'm just going to go into it. There's a lot of people that can't afford medications in the U.S. It's very, very expensive in the U.S. There are places where you can order online from Canada, India, stuff like that. And they're pharmacies, just like the U.S. It's just there's a million generic brands, which knocks down the value of like how much it costs, because there is competition, or we limit the competition down in the U.S. Hence what we're seeing. Right. Yeah. Now, where I was going with that is I'm pretty sure it was the same drug that you just mentioned, where they had them on the website. And as soon as someone announced that I can help with it, gone. Like if you had orders in for the drug, it was gone. You can no longer get it. They pulled it. And it's because they know that it worked.
Yeah.
Was it the cure-all? No. Could it fix with the issue? Very heavily, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. I can't confirm this. I heard someone say this, but they're using ivermectin in Japan now that they see that. And I also heard is that in India they are giving people like care kits with vitamin D, vitamin C, ivermectin. I don't know what else, and it seems to be working. And I don't know. I live here in Florida, and I don't know if you noticed, but past few months, we've been in the news. Florida cases surging. Ron DeSantis killing people. Florida is just a fucking backwoods garbage state. Bunch of idiots. Bunch of redneck conservatives. Well, if you want to take a look at a COVID case list now, Florida's like super low. We're like 48th in the country. Like we let COVID run its course. I don't want to get too much more into COVID, but I mean, just for example, dude, I went to a German fest, which was packed to the gills with people on Friday night. Then I go to Mr. Olympia on Saturday, packed to the gills. You were there. I mean, tons of people. I went to the gym yesterday, all this week. I don't know. I haven't caught it. I'm not saying that people don't. I'm just saying it's a little different. I don't know. I'll let you guys think whatever you want to, gather from that.
Yeah. I mean, there were entire countries that let it run the course. That was it.
Like Sweden, Norway, they're not doing any more mandates. They're not doing any of that. Just let it run its course.
Oh, you want to talk about mandates? So, and we're already on the topic, so it doesn't matter. We're going down the rabbit hole a little bit. So, Texas banned the mandated vaccines. Like the federal government basically can't go in because of separation of powers. So, I'm curious to see what states follow in suit with that. I would assume that Georgia, Florida, like all three of those states were like ahead of the curve with everything. Georgia was actually the first to do everything. Like they're the last to close, the first to open, and our government got like trashed on. And then next thing you know, like all the other, like it was like Texas, Florida, like they all started following suit. So curious to see where it goes.
What's interesting is with the Southwest right now. Southwest, they basically put out a press release saying that they were having crazy issues with weather and air traffic controllers. That's why they had to cancel thousands of flights. And a lot of places, media outlets, mainly liberal ones, put that out. So people were like, the first thing they hear is that, oh yeah, they're having weather issues and air traffic control. And then later on they hear that it's because their pilots are like, fuck this, we're not getting vaccinated. But so many people have already made up their mind that it's air traffic controllers and weather. And some people are so indoctrinated into believing what the media says that they can't connect the dots that Delta, Spirit, all the American airlines, they're somehow not affected by the weather and air traffic controllers in the same airport. And they'll believe what CNN tells them, that Southwest is not having issues. It's not because their pilots don't want to be forcibly jabbed. So it's just interesting how the media plays into that. And it's such a big part of our world these days.
I just find it's almost comical by this point for the people that are actually like free thinking, like that just look in like and see the whole picture. And don't get me wrong, we don't even see the whole picture because the whole picture is extremely complex. Will we ever know? Absolutely not. There's a lot of money involved and everything like that. But just like it's comical. Like it's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery and then keep trying to put a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery over and over again. And it's like, look, we can see that this thing is still bleeding out. Like, quit trying to put a Band-Aid on it, please. It's almost like comical.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, my wife was not political before all this. And now she's on TikTok and it's pretty much all she sees all day is like bullshit COVID stuff. And she's gotten, she's not like radicalized, but she has formed a very strong opinion that this is bullshit and the media is bullshit. I mean, fuck Joe Biden. The lady tried to spin it into let's go Brandon. Like, you can hear F Joe Biden loud and clear, but she tried to spin it as let's go Brandon. And now I'm going to get one of those let's go Brandon shirts.
Wait, what was that from?
What? You don't? Okay. So there's a NASCAR event, right? And a guy named Brandon won. And this lady's interviewing him right after the race. She's like, "Oh, great race, this and that." And it's on live TV. And all the crowd is going, "Fuck Joe Biden." And dude, bro, pull it up after we get done with this. And the lady goes, she goes, "Oh, you can hear the crowd's fired up. They're saying, 'Let's go, Brandon.'" Dude, my wife just put the ringtone of they made a remix song of "Let's Go, Brandon." My wife just put it as a ringtone.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. So it's like we've never had a president, I don't think in the history, in my lifetime at least, that was like as spoken out against as we've seen with Biden and the actions and not just him, it's the cabinet around him too. But this one thing that I always hate about Trump. Everyone's like, "Oh, screw Trump," right? It's like, it's not just him. Like, do you know how many people are involved in decision making? Like, there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than us in decision making, or that are trying to do whatever they're trying to do. And I've never seen anyone I don't want to say he's hated, but I feel like he's almost like hated by this point, because it's everything how it's transpired and stuff like that. It's kind of mind blowing. Like, I never expected to see a president hated someone. Now, there was a lot of controversial stuff around Trump, and Trump is very, very outspoken. That was one of the reasons that people didn't agree with him. And don't get me wrong, like, I thought the actions that he took, like, for the people of the U.S. as a whole, were phenomenal. And I 100%. Thought a lot of the stuff that he said was really stupid and to get a rise out of people, and that was it. But he would do it because that's his personality, you know. Yeah, he's arrogant. And I think anyone that says he's not arrogant,
he's a billionaire. He's a billionaire. He's not used to caring what people think. Yeah. Oh, you don't like that? Fuck off. You're fired. You know, he can do that. And every time I would see Trump tweet, I'm like, bro, stop tweeting. I don't like the idea of a president on a platform like Twitter or social media at all. I grew up, and I'm going to sound old, but I saw the president on the TV. I was proud. This was America. And then I see him tweeting about football players and stuff. And I'm like, bro, you're up here. You're not down here with the rest of us on social media. Not like that, but.
So Obama was the one that popularized it. Obama did a really good. Now, Obama was different though, because he was very relatable to a normal person.
Yeah,
he was probably one of the most well-spoken presidents we've ever had. In all honesty,
absolutely smooth. Smooth, really very smooth.
And the way he articulated himself on Twitter was very tactful and relatable. So he was one of the most relatable presidents we've ever had. But Trump put his personality on Twitter, which was his personality, to get a rise out of people. And I didn't agree with that. You were right. He would take himself from here and you bring himself down here for no reason. He didn't have to say anything like that. Yeah.
I didn't, I mean, obviously agree with some of the stuff that Obama did, like Obamacare was a disaster, but I mean, I respected him as a strong leader, well-spoken, represented America very well. I would never go to a stadium and yell, "Fuck Obama," because I didn't dislike him. I disliked some of his politics, but I didn't dislike him. And I thought he was a very American style president. And, the problem with Biden, he's fucking dementia. And they tried, remember, I don't know if you remember, they tried to get Trump kicked out of office, saying that he needed to take a cognitive test. But I mean, does anyone at this point, let us know in the comments. By the way, if you're watching this, we have a podcast on all the different platforms. If you're listening to us, we have a YouTube channel. Just search Too Much Test Podcast. You can actually see our bright and shiny, beautiful faces as we do this. But let us know in the comments. Can anyone in this country say that Joe Biden does not have dementia, Alzheimer's, or some kind of serious cognitive decline? Like, if it's my grandpa, I'm looking and be like, "Sorry, Pop, you're not there, bud."
Yeah, we're gonna have to put you in a home now.
I mean, and that's why people are like, "Oh, Joe Biden's doing all this." He's not doing shit. He's a puppet. He goes out there, he looks at the teleprompter, he tries to stay where he's talking, and if he starts to talk on his own, feed goes down.
Yup. And they try to pull the plug as soon as he starts talking or not knowing what he's talking about. They try to pull the plug of some sort, every single time.
I mean, it reminds me. I mean, I could be sitting on the couch with my grandpa with dementia, and he's going to be telling me crazy stories like that don't make sense. You know, old Corn Papa was a bad dude, ran with the crew, straight razors. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, he was talking about like little kids pulling on his hair, his leg hair in the pool, and he's sniffing kids. And but yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 20 minutes, and we're basically questioning whether Joe Biden has dementia. So
yeah, it went from your favorite compound to Biden with dementia.
That's why this podcast is so awesome, because we don't script it. Like me and David before this, I was like, hey, maybe I'll ask you what your favorite compound is and what, you know, that you could only use for the rest of your life. And he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And now here we are with Fuck Joe Biden, AKA Let's Go Brandon. Anything you want to close with, David?
No. I think this is an awesome episode. We should have Sam on our next episode. I'm sure we will. And hopefully another guest, maybe even Keon Pearson or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Sam's probably doing like supersets right now at the gym. Probably just getting even more jacked. But well, thanks you guys for listening to the Too Much Test podcast. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, toomuchtest.com. Check out David Demesquita, Dynamite D. What's your Instagram?
Yeah, it's Dynamite_D.
Dynamite_D. You can check me out at Test Your Levels on Instagram and YouTube. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for the support. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.